Du coup, on vous parlait de speakers internationaux. Donc on a la chance de vous présenter aujourd'hui un passionné de DevOps et de livraison continue. Donc merci d'applaudir Paul Stack.
Good morning. Good morning. This is very weird. Thank you for having me. I was asked to come to a conference in Bordeaux. I thought it was going to be very small. Good turnout. Good turnout. This is a talk called "The Biggest Trick Consultants Ever Pulled." Was convincing the word continuous delivery was easy. Silence. Agile. So my name's Paul Stack. Thank you for having me here in Bordeaux. I'm very pleased to be here. I've travelled quite a lot this week. I've just come back from honeymoon. This was me earlier in the week in South Africa. This is me now in Bordeaux. It's like a real life me. I'm a complete and utter travel junkie. I love going away. I love going and meeting new people, so this is perfect for me. I'm an engineer at a company called HashiCorp. HashiCorp are the company that provide tools for operations and developers. It's not a sales pitch. I'm not even going to tell you what they do. And I'm just going to talk straight about exactly continuous delivery. Anybody know continuous delivery? So continuous delivery seems to be the new goal in software development. Okay? It seems to be what people strive for. It's the new hotness. It's got many different buzzwords, but I can guarantee it's been around a long, long time. Okay? It's just become very prevalent in the past few years. The background to this talk. My first job in IT, I joined a company as a junior developer. And I went into work on a small project that was quite, it was quite an important piece of technology for the company. And I asked my boss, I says, okay, where did I get the source code? He shook his head. He pointed to a machine under his desk. The source code was on that machine. I said, okay, what do I do? Do I clone it? He goes, no, you have to RDP, remote desktop, into that machine, and that's when you do your development. It's like, okay. How do we build the software? Well, what we do is we take the C# files and we FTP them to the production server, and it compiles on the fly. Okay. I was shocked and horrified at this, okay, because you don't expect to go into a company and work in practices like that. It still happens today. It's not a bad thing. Well, it is a bad thing. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not the best thing, it's not the best way to create software, and it's very risky. Okay? And moving towards continuous delivery is a great way to help eliminate that risk. So for those who don't know, continuous delivery is a set of principles and practices for building, testing, and releasing software more frequently. Okay? Usually, as developers, are we all developers? Who's not a developer? Okay, oh wow, we've got quite a few. So, ops people, business people, QAs, that type of thing? Okay, cool. So, lots of people across the spectrum. So usually as software developers, we only focus on the first two. We only focus on building and testing. Because as developers, we hate releasing our systems. It is dreadful. We've had nightmares. We've had to roll back, we've had to stay up late at night, we've had to create maintenance windows. We've probably done everything we can in order to stop releasing our software. But, unfortunately, as our companies cannot make money unless the software has been released. It's as simple as that. There are 8 very easy principles. I'm not going to read them all. This is all very well documented and very well blogged. But there are 4 very unique practices. These are the 4 most important things that you will see. All the slides will be available, okay? I'm going to post them right at the end and I'll put it on the hashtag. Firstly, build your binaries once. Please, 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 do not build for QA and then rebuild for production. Please, because at that point you cannot guarantee that what goes to production was what was tested in QA. If you learn anything else from me today, take that one thing away. Please. I beg you. Secondly, use the same mechanism for deployment to all environments. Okay? Don't have FTP to QA. Don't have ridiculous deploy pipelines to production. Same thing all the time. If it's FTP to one, FTP to all. If it's Docker upload to one, Docker upload to them all. Please don't do that either. We'll come back to that in a bit. 3, smoke test your deployment. Who doesn't smoke test their deployments? How do you know it works? Do you wait for the first customer bug to come to you and say, nah, that doesn't work? We've all done that, right? We have. It's very embarrassing as software engineers and QAs and managers for someone else to tell us first that our system is broken. We should be the first to know that it's broken. And lastly, if anything fails, stop the build, stop the pipeline, fix it there and then. Don't let the technical debt accumulate. Okay, technical debt is a killer. Hello? There we go. Technical debt's a killer in our industry. It really is. And sometimes we have to come up with the mix of moving fast, but also fixing our crap underneath. Because otherwise, it's going to get to the point where we just cannot move fast enough. We're going to grind to a halt at some point. Anyone read the book? Few people. Few people. Okay. So this is the seminal book of continuous delivery. Okay. It's published in 2010 by Jez Humble and David Farley. Okay. Jez Humble used to work for ThoughtWorks. Dave Farley also used to work for ThoughtWorks. He's an independent consultant right now. And this is the book that teaches you everything. Okay. You don't just read through the book and then checklist. That's not how it works. It's a very in-depth book that has many different sections that deal with many different parts of the pipeline. It will take you a long time to read it. Don't just read it in a weekend. In fact, it's probably really boring to read in a weekend. So I say it was published in 2010. Does that mean continuous delivery is only 6 years old? No. Anyone ever heard of the Agile Manifesto? Right? Right? One of the first principles in the Agile Manifesto, which was 2001, 9 years previous to the continuous delivery book, was our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Wow, would you look at that? Would you look at that? 9 years previous to the book. Does that mean that somebody's just thought, let's write a book and just make some money? No! Because it shows that how important it is. It was very important in 2001, it's very important in 2010, and look, our industry is moving towards continuous delivery. In fact, there's the adoption curve. Okay, you've got the early adopters, you've got the rest of the people, and then you've got the laggards. Okay, we're probably past the early adopters phase right now, and we've got the massive people trying to adopt the technology or a tool, a way of working. Okay, soon we're going to get all the rest, all the enterprise rubbish is going to join, and then they're going to create consultants and certifications. Oh, that's already happening. But the best thing about this way of working was it was to uncover better ways of building and releasing your software, and more reliable ways. Okay, because as I said, till your software is in production, it's not making money. And every company wants to make money. Though I asked that question once before, and someone put their hand up and went, I work for a not-for-profit. You try to catch me out. So there are many fallacies about what continuous delivery is. If this is supposedly part of a joke, okay? So this is very light-hearted. If you do any of these, don't think that I'm picking on you. If you're a consultant, please don't think I'm picking on you. I just think it's very funny in order to relate to how the industry is going in order to learn a message. Number one, continuous delivery is only something that startups can achieve. The amount of times I have been told this is incredible, and it's absolute and utter rubbish. Okay? Continuous delivery isn't something that you do. Okay? You just don't switch on a button and say, I'm going to continuous delivery. Okay? It takes a culture change, it takes a mindset change, it takes many, many changes within an organization to get there. Many, over a long, long time. So please be aware, anyone can start this. Very recently, there is a movement for continuous delivery in the mainframe. Like mainframe systems moving in this type of way to release software, it's crazy. Who would have thought it? I certainly wouldn't. Number 2, this is one of my favorites. This is so true, right? Continuous delivery is only something that a hipster language can do. If I swear, I apologize. Okay, I'm Irish. You have to let me know my Irish. Absolute rubbish. It doesn't matter what language, what syntax, whatever you're programming. It doesn't matter. It's the journey of continuous improvement. You take 2 steps forward towards continuous delivery if you're in C++, and that's a good move. You can take 5 steps forward if you're in PHP, and that's a good move. That's what it's about. It's about always pushing forward and being better. Oh, sorry to the consultants. We can hire a continuous delivery consultant. I have yet to find a continuous delivery consultant who actually knows what continuous delivery is. Because the people who sell their consultancy services in this way can only take a company so far. Okay, they can go in, they can help them put the automation in place, they can help start to shift the culture change. But a consultant's job is usually a short-term job, and they'll not hang around in order to see the long-term effects of continuous delivery. Okay, because that's what it is. It's a long-term strategy to move in that direction. So a consultant can go in and help them move it, but they can't actually just implement it. They can only ever put the wheels in motion. They get progressively worse, as you can see going through, right? Number 4, right-click and publish in your IDE is continuous delivery. Jesus Christ. I swear to God, I know somebody at Microsoft who has done this to a production system recently. A big company like Microsoft actually do this type of thing. Okay, I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to name the product, but if you look at some of the products, you'll probably see why it fails so much. Okay. Also, up until recently, Azure had that button in the portal. Continuous deployment button, great, very useful. Number 5, we can just hook our GitHub repository up to Azure or AWS or Heroku, and that's continuous delivery. Somebody actually tweeted that to me last year, saying he's just deployed from GitHub to Azure just to annoy me, because he knows how passionate I am about this subject. Number 6, containers, silver bullet. Let's not even talk about them. Anybody use containers? Sorry. You really don't want to get me in a rant on containers right now, because I haven't had enough coffee. I thought it would be funny. Number 7, DevOps means we don't need operations teams. Yes, that is 100% true. Let's hire a developer who doesn't know anything about operations. Let's add the tag DevOps. Let's pay them half of what you would pay 2 people, and let them do everything. That's going to end up well, isn't it? That's definitely going to do well for your company. It's also not just giving everyone SSH access to production. That's not DevOps either, and that's not continuous delivery. Number 8, using Chef, Puppet, Ansible means I am DevOps. Skip that one as well. Number 9, we can hire a DevOps team who will create our Jenkins jobs and our bash scripts for us. Yeah. Do you remember when we went through the phase of when Agile went so mainstream and we started introducing like all of these different certifications and Agile consultants and Agile teams and the Agile developers and stuff like that? Yeah, continuous delivery and DevOps is now at that phase, and people have realized that they can make a lot of money off this, so they're just doing this type of thing. Again, I will point out that these people can only take you so far. There is no point in you hiring me to come to your company, write 1,000 bash scripts for you, and then leave. Because if you don't have the culture in place in order to continue that, it's wasted time and it's wasted money. Please remember that if you ever try and hire consultants. You have to work with them, not just make them do the job. Really important. And number 10, background to this, Microsoft Keynote last year, the presenter, who is the Senior DevOps Program Manager, actually said these words: I'm going to rub a little DevOps around and make it better. Like, really, honest to God. Let's just leave that. So, there are many fallacies about what DevOps is and what continuous delivery is, and they're very intertwined. And this talk is going to actually explain how you can't really have one without the other. Okay. You need the mixture of the development team, the operations team, the QA team, and everyone in order to create the best software your company can create. Mary Poppendike, she actually asked the question, how long would it take your company to deploy a code change for a single line of code? And we've all probably answered it, especially this Agile community will know this very well. Okay, this is from the Lean Software book, written in, I don't know, I think even before I was born, she's been doing this type of stuff. Okay, and this goes back to her days at 3M, where every change in production was attributed a cost. And they weighed up exactly how much it would cost to make the change, and then they decided if it was worth making the change. That is how you create software. But you can only do it by following this, by creating it on a reliable, repeatable basis all the time. And I ask this question a lot. I do a lot of these workshops in order to help people understand why they need to move in this direction. And I usually get one of two answers. The first one says, well, if it's a bug fix, we can probably get that out in a day. But for normal development work, maybe 2 weeks. Can anybody describe to me the difference between normal development and a bug fix? Right? It's the same, because it should follow the same pipeline, it should follow the same process. When you put a bug fix out, do you just not test it? Or when you're doing normal development, does it just sit around and just wait? And it's usually the second one. And you can draw this, okay? So it's called a value stream map. Anyone heard of value stream mapping? A few people. And at a company I joined, Jesus, 7 years ago now? Yeah, 7 years ago. I went in and they had a 1.6 million lines of C# in a single monolithic application. And they could only deploy once every 6 weeks. And the CTO said to me, he was like, hey, we need to sort of move faster. This is the actual value stream map from the software, okay? This is, and as you can see, it's in like PDF. So I've scanned the PDF and I've put it up there. And I was like, okay, where are the bottlenecks? He was like, well, we don't know. So we drew it and we looked at it. And you can see all along the bottom is the wait time. Okay. This is 19 and a half days. 19 and a half, that's 1 working month. And I pointed that out to him, and he was like, why are we waiting 19 and a half days before we release our software? I was like, it's almost as though you needed the metrics for this, right? And this is what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to make you aware of where the waste is in your system. Now, I'm not here to tell you that Lean is the best and you have to do it this way. You choose whatever works for your company. Whatever works within your process, and that's a good thing. What you should do is just help find out the areas in which you can make it better. So we started chipping away at this. And when I left the company 4 years later, 5 years later, we went from releasing one monolithic application every 6 weeks to we were making multiple deploys a day on many applications because we split up the repo. This was like before microservices. And we had single deployable units and everything was around. And we didn't care how many deploys a day because that's a vanity metric. Okay? We deployed when we needed to deploy, and we deployed value all the time. Because we were able to continually draw this and continually work out where the areas of our code were that needed to change and the areas of our pipeline that needed to change. In 2011, this quote rang very well with me. Okay? And it felt exactly what I was trying to explain in my talks. And it's by Chris Reed, who used to, again, work for ThoughtWorks. He now works for a US company called DSW. And he said, until your pretty code is in production, making money, you've just wasted your time. I'm very sorry if that is offensive to some craftsmen. And I'm very sorry if that's offensive to some people who don't believe in like rushing code out the door. But effectively, if you take 6 months to deliver a feature, a competitor will beat you. That is the world we live in these days. Everything works and moves so fast that you have to get your process and pipeline in place to move as fast. If you can't, money is down the drain, I'm afraid. Now, just because something goes into production very fast doesn't mean it has to lack in quality. Small, tiny changes of value for your customer will always allow you to move better and more efficiently. And without the virtues of craftsmanship, it's going to get to the point where you're not going to be able to move very fast. So always continually clean up after yourself. This is like reoccurring messages throughout this whole thing. You're going to be. I'm hoping you're going to dream about this stuff. Actually, that would be really sad. But to improve, obviously, we need to measure things. Okay, you can't improve without metrics. In fact, I'm so obsessed with metrics, I bought myself a metrics watch. And it now tells me when I exercise better, when I sleep better, when I'm actually at my feeling my best, and it also buzzes me if my heart rate goes too high. So it's just like, are you okay? Is it okay? So you can't get better at what you do unless you measure it, but you can measure it in every way in life. People metrics. Don't fall into the trap of vanity metrics. Please don't fall into that trap. Don't profess our company deploy 40 times a day. Who cares? In actual fairness, who cares? Is that 40 bug fixes? Is that 40 spelling mistakes? It doesn't matter. Okay? As long as you have the pipeline and process in place to deliver fast and when you need to, that's a good metric. And then we get to the rise of DevOps. So 2010, continuous delivery started getting really popular. Okay, 2009, Martin Fowler wrote about CI. 2010 then kicked in about CD. So there was a real trend. And now we're at the point of the operations guys were like, you know what, those developers are having a lot of fun moving fast and using new tools. I think we should get involved as well. And this is where it came from. Okay. 2009, this actually started happening. And there was a conference in the US called Velocity. And there was a talk at it called 10 deploys per day, how ops and devs work together at Flickr. Okay. And it was by a guy called John Allspaw, who was an operations guy, and a guy called Paul Hammond, who was a developer. Now, for those who have worked in the industry for quite a while, you would probably think, why on earth is a developer and an operations person standing together on the stage? The ops people usually live under the stairs and just eat pizza. And that's usually what happens in companies. They're in a little room of their own and nobody talks to them and they play heavy metal thrash music and they're really grumpy. I'm an ops person, by the way, so I can testify. So this was an amazing talk, okay, because it was showing how, back in 2009, that when the two teams worked together, that they could be very effective in what they were delivering. And there was a lot of discussion on Twitter. And one of the guys who was tweeting a lot was called Patrick Dubois. Patrick Dubois is from Belgium. And he was like, we need to bring a velocity to Belgium. Any Belgians in here? Okay, good. I can say something bad about the place. I'm not going to say anything bad about the place, though. So they decided that on the 30th and 31st of October, 2009, that they would bring a conference to Ghent. Okay. Now, I am told, I've never been there, that there's only 3 good things about Ghent. Beer, chocolate, and free. So people were like, let's go to Ghent. So people came from all over the world. And I mean all over the world. You had a guy called Lindsay Holmwood, came from Sydney. I don't even think people from Australia know where Belgium is. Sorry, Belgians, I'm kidding. But But what the conference was, it was 2 days, and it was for developers and system admins, or ops. Okay? Can you see where this is going? And it got the name DevOps Days. It has a really weird logo. It's still used today. It's still used, that logo. It's amazing. And it was a conference where they were talking about sharing war stories and sharing how they were able to get out of bad scenarios. And obviously it was only 2 days, and there was only so much information you can disseminate in 2 days. So they started tweeting about it. But Twitter is limited to 140 characters, so when they were doing hashtags, they dropped the days. And thus the term DevOps was created. That is actually how the word DevOps was created. It wasn't by 20 executives sitting around a big table in an ivory tower thinking, what is the new hotness? It was a term denoted from a conference. They say it's for practitioners by practitioners. Okay? So if you didn't know where it came from, that's actually the history of it. And what it is you usually have 2 ways of thinking. You have ops people who want stability and don't want to be woken up in the middle of the night, and you have developers who want to develop better software and use better technologies. And you have the real line in the middle where they don't really talk to each other. I worked in a company like this. The company I worked in actually paid operations people for uptime. We got bonuses for uptime. If we got 100% uptime at the end of the month, we got a bonus in our salary. Why on earth would we let software developers put software into production? It would just cause bugs. I wouldn't get my salary. And it denotes it perfectly well. But of course we had maintenance windows where we had to take things offline and do patches for our Windows servers. But that wasn't included in our downtime, so we still got a bonus anyway. And we usually rushed software development out the door at that point. But this is the way a lot of companies still work. They still have this real head-to-head about how they build and deploy their systems. DevOps Borat says it really well. If you praise for website success, you're a dev. If you're blamed when it goes down, you're an op. And what usually happens is a software developer will create some crap and will throw that crap across the wall to an operations person. Now, I have a USB key here. Can somebody just take it and put it into their laptop? Anybody fancy just taking a USB key and putting it into their laptop? No? So why should I, as an ops person, deploy code that I have no idea about? It's the same thing, right? It could be anything. It could cause my servers to melt. It could cause recursive buffering of packages to memory and just like put your RAM through the roof. You just don't know what it is. And you end up in a situation where it worked fine in development, but you're a problem on ops people. Anyone in here actually, are they on call as part of their company? Unfortunately, I am. Now, I just recently got married, and my wife hates it when I'm on call. Hates it. Because she knows that the phone has to be switched on in my bedroom at night in case anything happens. And I'll guarantee you, there's nothing that will fix software better than a very upset wife. Especially when you're newly married. Especially that. So what's DevOps? This is a great quote that came as well from a guy called Dave Mango. Okay, and he used to work for Salesforce, he now works for Librado. Librado is a monitoring tool. And it's one of my favorite quotes. Okay? DevOps is not about learning each other's job. You don't have to know what ops people do as developers, and developers don't need to be able to explain what they do to ops people. It's all about understanding that money is made when it's in production. It's the harmony between how the departments work. It's the mutual respect in the fact that as an operations person, I believe you as a developer will create the best software you can. And it's about you knowing that when you put it into production, that I'm giving you the best and most reliable environment I can. Because without that mutual trust and understanding, communication breaks down. It's based on 3 ways. Okay? Systems thinking, amplifying feedback loops, and creating a culture of experimentation and learning. We're going to dive through these really fast because I don't even know what time it is. My watch is still in UK time. Not so good at metrics, right? The first way, systems thinking. In a nutshell, systems thinking is the flow of information from left to right. Okay. How you move the information from the business to the customer. Think of it as the release of features, the release of bugs, the release of value to your customer. Okay? But it's a one-way flow of information. And in this case, it's usually from the development team to the operations team. Development team acting on behalf of the business, operations team actually being the gatekeepers to the customers. And it's helped us understand that there are four different types of work. Okay. And we can plan as much as we want. Okay, we can plan for our improvements, our business projects, and our changes. Does anybody build time into their sprints for deployments? Wow, you actually do?
Yeah, I do.
That's awesome, right? I see so little people do that. But it's one of the most important parts of your sprint, right? Because what usually happens is at the end of a sprint, you go, right, we're finished, we're done. Oh, actually, we have to release it. So it takes up the first portion of the next sprint, and then you're always playing catch-up. Okay, so that's awesome. Please continue doing that. That is brilliant. And please, everyone else learn from it. But one thing that we don't plan for is outages, bugs, downtime, debugging. Okay? We don't keep a percentage of our time to find out what the hell has happened in production. And it's a killer. Because if someone comes and reports a bug to us, we have to stop everything that we're doing, depending on the severity of the bug. And we just have to find what it is. And usually we're like, and we start like live debugging on web servers and crap like that, right? And it just is a time sink, and it's very dangerous, and it happens and it happens. We need to be able to apportion some time for this as well. We really need to. So the flow of information from left to right has helped us identify 4 areas. The second way, it's the flow of information from right to left. Most software engineering companies right now have stopped here. Okay. This is as far as they've got. This is the beginning of their continuous delivery journey. This is where they want to hire a DevOps team in order to help them finish it. Wouldn't it be brilliant as a software engineer if me as an operations person was able to give you feedback on your deployment? Hey, that deployment you made yesterday, we actually had a CPU degradation by like 10%. If you're in that area of the code base again, could you have a look at it? Very useful feedback. Much more useful than that software you released yesterday was crap, fix it. Because that's what usually happens. It is what usually happens. But when you implement the flow of information from right to left, you have to learn how to communicate it well. Otherwise, it's just lost, and it's just going to create more communication barriers. Okay. That is amplifying your feedback loop. Feedback loops are extremely important in everything we do, and I'm sure you'll hear more about them throughout the day. I know I've seen one talk anyway. The third way. Oh, by the way, about pages. A CEO of a company called Browsemob actually said that when we woke developers at 2 a.m., defects got fixed faster. I can testify to that. That is true. That is actually true. As a developer, take an on-call shift. It will widen your eyes to a variety of things that happens in production. It will also get you very interested in understanding how your system runs in production. You'll probably cry and leave the company. And then the third way, once you've got the feedback from left to right and right to left, and you're working as a team, then you can really start to experiment. Anyone ever heard of Etsy? A few people. Booking.com. Hotel, you know, it's a travel and hotel website. Booking.com actually run 2,000 experiments on their website at any one time. Because they have all of these systems so well tuned and the feedback is there and the metrics are coming in, every person who goes on Booking.com nearly sees something different. Because they're continually trying little bits and pieces. And I mean so subtle, like moving the checkout button 1 pixel to the left and 1 pixel up. Or changing it from rounded corners to square corners. Changing it from blue to green. And throwing a small portion of people through that way of using the site. So it's multi-tenant testing, okay, canary releasing, A/B testing, that sort of area. Okay. Most famous company that are doing this right now is Facebook. Anybody who pulls their phone out, you will see something very different on Facebook from the person beside you. They guarantee that. No two people will be able to see the same thing on Facebook. I've been to their offices, I've seen how this works. Very privileged to be able to go and meet their engineering team that work on this part of the system. Facebook roll out the first feature, the first time they release a feature goes to 17% of the female population of New Zealand. That is not made up. That is a true fact. It's well documented, it's well out there. Because they say that if there's enough females in New Zealand, in that amount of people, that will use a feature before it hits a major metropolis. So like Singapore or China, or not China, Singapore or Malaysia, and as it goes across the world, they can actually work out if there's a problem with it and switch it off before it hits the big cities. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. Netflix do it as well, every time. Netflix will roll out features to Europe first, now that it is in Europe, and because their major market is in the US. So they'll test things out in Europe, see how they work, while the US are sleeping, and then if it works, let it roll out to production in the US. This is a very well-known way of releasing our system. Very well-known. And it's all because you're able to like test, and you're able to feedback, and you're able to understand how your systems are working in production. You can learn all this in books. Okay? I'm just here to make you aware that it's happened. Okay? The Goal is my favorite IT book. I have read it 5 times. Okay? And it's about the lean manufacturing industry and how they are able to eliminate waste in order to be better and more effective. It was rewritten in 2012 for the IT sector called the Phoenix Project. Anyone who's in IT and who has read the Phoenix Project probably knows the characters that are in it and can probably point to the people within their company, oh, there's such and such a person and there's the other person. Okay? That's why it's so effective as a book. These are fantastic. Have a read of them if you haven't. Start with The Goal. It is the best quintessential book for flow and understanding delivery. And it will be very thought-provoking. It really will. I have not many slides, I promise. We're all part of the same team, folks. When you work for a company, it's not Department A, Department B, Department C. It's company. Without Department A, B and C don't work. Without B, A and C don't work. Everybody has to be moving in the same direction in order to deliver your company's goals. Let's skip that. Actually, let's talk about this. So, paddypower.com, which is a betting website in the UK and Ireland, there was a talk by one of their development managers called John Turner. And he presented this image at London Meetup, the Continuous Delivery Meetup. And he basically put down everything that their entire IT team has to work on in order to deliver their systems. And as you can see, it's like machine images, storage, unit test, code quality, log analysis, log metrics, build, configuration management, etc. That's everything. Okay. But why he put it on one slide is because he said we're one engineering team. Anybody in our team should be able to be aware of anything else that is on this slide. It doesn't mean that QAs have to stick to the grey line and that developers stick to the blue line. and that infrastructure people stick to the red line. Because as QAs, you need to be able to interact and tell the operations people the changes in your environment that you need. So you need to understand how your environment works. It's very good. It was a very interesting talk. I wish it had been recorded. Otherwise, I could just like use the same image and just say it's mine. But there are some key pieces here. Okay, and these are the ones as developers that we don't think about. Configuration management. Anyone use Puppet, Chef, Ansible, Salt? A few people. Does anybody not know what configuration management is? Awesome. Well, that's a really good start. 2. There's a journey. Okay, you've probably gone from handcrafted servers, right, to configuration management, and people who are at the other side of that right now are moving into the immutable infrastructure space. Okay, we're not going to talk about serverless, because that's crap. I'll tell you what in a minute. Immutable infrastructure is, you spin it up once, don't change it in production. If you need to change it, destroy it and release a new one. Okay? Because changes in production introduce risk. And in order to move in that direction, you really need to have some good tooling available. You need to have your scripting right, you need to have your deployments right, you need to have your testing right, your smoke testing right, etc. Okay. This is where the industry is moving in this area. Think of the cloud. Machines in Amazon are not designed to be around forever. In fact, Amazon tell you, this machine may not be here tomorrow. You will literally get a notification in an event section that says, this machine is scheduled for retirement. What do? Do you panic? Do you pretend that it doesn't happen? You have to have the tools in place in order to spin up the same machine again, in order to actually release your software and your software not to have a user impact. Functional programmers decided that it's not really immutable. Thanks, functional programmers. Anybody in here functional programmer? Yeah. It's not actually immutable. I have to give them real credit for that, because log messages are written, the state of the disk changes all the time and it's filling up. So we decided that maybe disposable infrastructure is a better way of calling it, because it's spun up to be disposed of. Makes much more sense. See? Who said that functional programmers don't ship anything? Joking. I don't want to anger that group. Logging. Does anybody not centrally log? Anybody not log in their software at all? And when I mean log, I don't mean to disk or to the debug window. So, we should be shipping messages. Okay? We don't want anything to be on our servers. If you're writing to standard out, or you're writing to a file on disk, ship that file away from the machine. Because if the machine dies, you're not going to get the logs of why the machine has died. Okay. There are many ways of doing this. Many ways of doing this. But the main thing is that when you centrally log, you can understand trends and analysis of your software. This is actually a dashboard I created for my team. One of my team. And forget about the top right-hand corner, okay? Because that's a vanity metric, and they thought that it was really cool that at their weekly update they would say, we deployed 4 times this week. Forget about that. The main thing is, the total requests that came into all our APIs was 22 million. And we were able to measure that out of 22 million requests, there were 70 non-200s. 70 errors were thrown, potential errors were thrown. We had that broken down by which API in the middle. Okay? And then we graphed the total requests along the axes. Now you may not notice it, but there are tiny little tags right here. Okay? This is the tag, this is the tag, and then there's only 2. And what that is we actually marked deployments. Because we wanted to understand the effects that deployments had on our software. And we could see, when we released here, and we released here, cache misses went up slightly. It was a general trend up. And a new fix was released over here, and it reduced it again. This is the flow of information from left to right, and then right to left. By giving the developers this type of dashboard, and this type of information, they were able to make their own realizations that they needed to change their software. Metrics are key. They're really key, folks, honestly, and it's a recurring theme for me. Monitoring. Anyone involved in their company's monitoring? Anyone know what monitoring tool their company uses? Actually, anyone not know what monitoring tool their company uses? Nobody. Good. As developers and QA people, we are the people who know if our software is working. What I mean by that is, we are the ones that should go and sit with the operations people in order to write our monitoring tests. We know the responses that come back from our APIs, we know API timeout limits, we know the paths in order to get to the APIs. Standard monitoring for operations used to be, is the server alive? Is the CPU below 20%? Is the disk less than 50%? And are we having any RAM spikes? That tends to be what it used to be. Now it's much more synthetic. It's much more of a, has the disk space risen X% in the last 2 minutes or the last 3 minutes? Have we got a request queue of users being built up? Is the time taken for the internal request through the system more than 1 second? Is the end user getting more their response in less than 20 milliseconds, etc.? It's much more synthetic because developers are starting to understand that that's how operations people know that money is that the system is working. Orchestration. We're going to skip that. We're also going to skip that. No, we'll talk about data center as code. So the cloud has given us this ability that we don't have as such thing as a data center anymore. Okay. We don't have to we don't have to like. Hello. We don't have to send a notice to procurement and say we need a 32 gig RAM server and it needs to be racked in this piece of the data center. Okay. And like 8 weeks later, you get a notification saying your server's now ready. The operations team can take over, etc. Okay. It's given us the ability to move much faster. We can provision on demand to the capacity of Amazon or Azure if you don't like yourself. And Amazon aren't going to run out of space in every data center. I can guarantee you that because they know the metrics of the usage and the trends and the seasonalities of how systems are being used. Trust people like that. They're good at their job. They wouldn't make the billions without it. But the data center as code allows us to use tools in order to specify the entire environment and how it looks, and then be able to spin it up and down. Let me show you an example. So this is the tool I work on. Okay, it's called Terraform. Everyone hear me still? Yeah. Excellent. So it allows me to specify in configuration to be declarative about what I want my infrastructure to look like. Okay, it's an open source tool. As I said, this is not a sales pitch. Use whatever tool you want. Really doesn't bother me. Use the practices better. It will benefit you more. And what I'm actually saying is that in AWS, okay, provider AWS, let's increase the font size. In our specified region, I want a VPC, I want a Bastion node. This is all like very ops specific stuff. Let's go in. I want a cache cluster, okay, cache cluster of size T2 medium or whatever the size you want. And it's Redis. I want a DNS record. I want a service for the search service. I want there to be 2 instances of the search service running. It allows me to declare in code exactly how my infrastructure looks. You probably can't see. There's a folder here called dev. There's a folder here called production. And another folder called UAT. They're exactly the same.
I better not show you that role ID. They're exactly the same because my environments are built in exactly the same way every time. I define them once, and I roll that environment out across as many pieces of infrastructure as I want. That is data center as code. It's doing DNS, it's doing networking, it's doing storage for disks, it's also doing instances, so compute. If you really wanted to, it can hook in and it can actually set up your databases for you. There are providers in Terraform that will do that. Please don't trust it to do that. I've worked on that code. The main thing is that right now I have a repeatable, reliable way to make changes to my infrastructure. Not only that, anyone ever been asked to work in a disaster recovery document? Yeah, they suck. Badly. Really badly. And they're usually a disgusting mess of a Word document that hasn't been updated since like 1996. It's still got pictures of Windows Server 2003. And it still expects you to use like PowerShell 1. It's awful. If somebody asks me right now for my disaster recovery document, I'll point them to my GitHub repo. Because if I deploy this right now in Ireland. Okay. God forbid if Ireland ever blows up, all I have to do to change and deploy to another region is change it from US West 2. This is actually in, this is my, oh, they've changed that. This is my company. I haven't been at work in a while. And they've changed it to US West 2. So they've obviously had a problem in US 1. They failed over to US West 2. It updates the DNS, it updates the databases, it ships the new servers, everything up to a new region. That's disaster recovery. Amazon are very good at letting us know when there's problems. They're not so good at showing it on a dashboard, but you'll know that there are problems pretty fast. Netflix exclusively use Amazon. Netflix were able to, very recently, when there was a massive outage on US East 1 in North Virginia, they failed across to US West 2 with less than a minute's downtime. Because they don't use this tool, they use their own tools, but they still use the practices and principles. And that's the most important thing. As an industry, we're moving on. Again, the data center is only one part of it. Networking is becoming a huge thing. You have a lot of big companies that have routers all over the world. I work for a company called OpenTable, which is a restaurant reservation system. And we had this great idea that we would have the same configuration on our routers in the San Francisco office, the New York office, and the London office, all so that when you move from one office to the other, your laptop would reconnect and you wouldn't have to next say, what's the Wi-Fi password? Okay? That was a nightmare. That was the worst project ever. Right? What we had to do is we ordered the routers in London. We sent those to San Francisco. The network engineers in San Francisco pre-configured all the routers and they shipped them back to us in London. There is a movement now called software-defined networks that will allow you to do this. So you can actually use configuration management tools to change your router configuration because it's in code. If it's in code, it can be put in source control. If it's in source control, you can see the changes and why something is broken. It can also be tested. The world is changing. Please embrace the change. If you don't, you will be left behind and you'll probably be working on something like SharePoint for the rest of your life. There was a survey done. This is like the last 2 slides, and that's it. And then I'm going to stop boring you and we can all go and have coffee. There was a survey done about the benefits of continuous delivery and DevOps. Okay? And it was run in collaboration with Puppet Labs and IT Revolution and so on and so forth. It's done every year. And this one, I wrote this talk last year. I've been hashing out the same crap now for a year. Okay? Because I find it so important. But This was like the results of 2014, and I haven't compared it to 2015, which I should do, because they're very interesting results. So there's 3 takeaways from it. High-performing IT teams are more agile. Let me read you the metrics. I don't know if these are made up. I want to see them. High-performing IT teams, or teams that use DevOps and continuous delivery methodologies, will deliver code 30 times faster with 50% less failures. Interesting, right? The lead time for changes can be as much as 8,000 times faster. It's incredible. That is just incredible. If you can deliver software so quick to test it out for your users and find out if it's going to provide value for them that fast to a small percentage. Okay. High-performing IT teams can recover faster. You know the metric in this one. Recoveries can happen 12 times faster. I've just shown you how I can fail from one data center to another, or one region in AWS to another. Okay. If you can do that really quick, at OpenTable we used to have a disaster recovery data center. Okay. A whole data center that was a hot standby. Okay. It cost us $1 million a month. Right? Because we had a lot of infrastructure. When we went to test it, we found that it could only run 5% of our system. Because it had been forgotten about. So there's no way in hell that we could have failed over to that data center. We had to cut it. It was $1 million a month saved, but we had no disaster recovery. So we moved from physical data centers to disaster recovery, and what we thought, we moved away from it, we didn't have anything. We had to move to the cloud. The cloud allows you to move in this way and recover faster. The last one, high-performing IT teams can experiment more. If you are delivering code faster with less bugs, then you have more time for experimentation. Experimentation is where the money is made. My last company, a developer, anyone ever heard of 30% time? Or 20% time? You know, you get a portion of the week, or the 2 weeks of the sprint, that you get to like work on something fun to try out. Okay, just to see if it like works. Okay. Developer in the last company I worked for last year actually wrote a very tiny feature. Very tiny, what we thought was rubbish, waste of time. Okay. It actually increased revenue by $100 a day. Okay. Which doesn't seem a lot. Do $100 a day, 365 days a year. And then multiply that by 3 years. Right? So for something that took such a short amount of time, he implemented that feature in 1 day. We put it into production the next day, we feature toggle it on and off. Just to test it out, try it on. Okay? And we actually found, because we had all the metrics in place, and because we could recover from bugs fast by turning the feature off, we actually found that we could actually experiment and earn more money as a company. Just by doing this little thing. I'm not saying that you should go and start throwing out all these crappy features into production. It's about the ability to experiment, because you don't know, as a developer, what your users want. You should try new ways and innovative ways in order to keep them engaged in your website. It's very important. Because continuous delivery means better products for your customers. And remember that customers are not only your external customers. Internal people have lives as well. Don't make the news SharePoint. Don't. Ever. Ever. I don't have really any time for any questions, but thank you so much. I'm going to be around for the rest of the day. Please come and find me if you have any questions, and enjoy the rest of the day.